Hi, good morning. My name is Jeff Nelson, and I'd like to share some thoughts with you about my experience with the emotional ride, which is kidney disease, dialysis, and transplant. I think for me, a lot of it, as it does for many, I have polycystic kidney disease, and it's a hereditary disease. It's genetic, and so I knew I had a family history of it. So, for me, some of this journey started just watching what was happening with my mother, and once her diagnosis, and the rest of my family was diagnosed, and then that stress and that emotional ride of the uncertainty of what lies ahead. Even to the point where I think it's kind of moved the needle in terms of my career and what I ended up doing, and making some other changes in life's plans overall. Eventually, the things with kidney disease, and depending on what stage or what part of that continuum you're on, you see that it's gonna be different for everybody. And when I got to that stage where I needed to start listing for a kidney, where the diagnosis from the doctor, the prescription from the doctor was lose weight, find a kidney. So I lost 50 pounds. I started that Living Kidney campaign, which was successful. In my case, I had a kidney transplant, but the transplant failed, and I was back on dialysis, and that was emotionally very, very difficult. It was when you end up being that 1% that you read about in the statistics from the hospital, and their success rate for living kidney transplants being 98.5, 99% successful, and then you're that 1% that gets rejected and kicked out. But nonetheless, we had to get back on the horse and keep going on the on dialysis, and keep my eyes on the prize. While I was on dialysis, I really kind of lost track of how many times I received offers from the hospital in terms of saying, well, it looks like we found a transplant, looks like you're compatible, things like that. There have been times when I've been made offers, and the offers were of a not such a good transplant. One that may have had some significant risks that were associated with it, and there were times where I even declined a transplant because I wasn't willing to accept that risk of that offer, and I declined that offer. There were offers that were made to me, and I accepted the offer, and we even drove a couple hundred miles up to the Mayo Clinic in a blizzard one January evening, only to get there to find out that the transplant would not go forward. They rescinded the offer. They pulled it back due to not a good antibody match, and it was better to wait for a better transplant. And emotionally, to speak to that, it was very, very hard. A lot of tears and hurt feelings that I drove that far, that I came that close. But the thing to remember is that this is really in my best interests. Better to have that kidney go to somebody that had a better match, or who would match better for that kidney, and not to give me that transplant and then have a risk of rejection, which would leave me with even worse antibodies and more difficult to match than I already was at the time. Eventually, the right kidney came along. I got an offer, and in fact, the match was so good the doctors couldn't believe it. And they ran it twice just to make sure that there wasn't a mistake with the lab. So it's with the emotional journey, it's just I guess to summarize, it is going to be an emotional journey. It's going to be different for everybody. All I can tell you is that it's going to be something you're just going to have to deal with, work through, have friends, get help, reach out, and then you'll be all right, and eventually you'll get to where you need to be. So good luck. Thanks.